Shalom, all praises to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahushua, by Hashem HaRakah double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone that rule well. Shalom to the brothers doing the work of truth. Um, Saw this article and it brought to mind the kind of the dynamic that's been set up. Mainly, I've seen it pushed more from when the war with Ukraine started, and it's coming from Macron. And France is has out of the EU has like the biggest military. I think followed by what, the EU? I think followed by the UK after, and then Germany. But I know France has the biggest military and the most biggest military budget. And so this is on the Telegraph. This is what EU could die, warns Macron. It says the EU could die unless it makes itself more competitive with the US and China, Emmanuel Macron has warned. The French president said the bloc was over-regulating and under-investing at the Berlin Global Dialogue event. And yeah, Macron's kind of been pushing the vibration of really just trying to get the EU in a more militant mindset and less reliant on the US, because you go to at the bottom, it will kind of get to that as well. But that's been a push for a while, and it's in the spirit of prophecy as well, because you have a period of time where these nations were under the wing, let's say, of the US. But then when you you push to the time at the end, where we got World War III on the brink, the mark ready to get established, those kinds of things, then it's what you call it. Then in the midst of that, it's everything's gearing up for where it's gonna end up. And with like the relationship between the the EU, the other nations, and the US, that's gonna break down. And saying being competitive with the US, and with the initial setup of NATO, was basically offloading all the military capabilities onto the US, where all the nations were basically like, okay, we're gonna rely on the US, which is why the US has bases all over the fucking world, all the places that they conquered, and even amongst where they're meant to be allies, they're strong arming them. Because why, post World War II, that's how the dynamic was set up, and you basically had the Soviets and the US. Says that Washington and Beijing both outstripped the EU in economic output and investment, he said, before calling on the bloc to complete its banking union package of financial rules. Member states also needed to press for global trade rules to be kept fair, he added, according to Bloomberg. The EU could die. We are on the verge of a very important moment. Mr. Macron said, our former model is over. We are over-regulating and under-investing. In the 2 to 3 years to come, we will follow our classical agenda. If we follow our classical agenda, we'll be out of the market. And yeah, it's funny. Like the EU has globally is not having the same level of impact it once had. And it's kind of funny because with the UK, with Great Britain, as they call it, you had Brexit happen, where there was it's like overinflated ego for the people over here anyway. It was an overinflated ego where they're thinking like, oh yeah, where they had a certain level of pomp. But then as it went through, it's been made clear, it's like the UK wasn't that big of a player, it's the mother of the beast. But then it's also like now is the time of the beast. and it's got a role to play, but it's not the the heart of the world as it currently runs. That's obviously the U.S. But then this discussion, because he's talking about what do you call it, the economic aspects. That's only one aspect. The thing with the economics is that's kind of a it comes before, but then afterwards you have the what do you call it, the military aspects, because even for economics you kind of need the military to enforce or to have even maintain like certain policies. If you don't have the military force behind it in Esau's world, that's how it's kind of been run. It don't mean shit, which is why it's like um Iran needs that relationship with Russia to kind of stop it just getting run over. What's that? So Mr. Macron's remarks echo some of the findings of a landmark report by Mario Draghi, the former Italian Prime Minister. His report demanding a wider industry strategy for Europe, involving 800 billion euros in annual investment to prevent the EU falling behind the EU and the US and China. In April, Mr. Macron called for more integrated European defense and warned that the bloc could not become the vassal of the US when it came to security and military. And that's kind of the key point I was looking at from, because France has been like the spearhead of that opinion of not being, not basically just kind of following the tune of the US, and that mindset being, obviously Macron he's a former Rothschild banker, and he's kind of been at the spearhead of a lot of the thought within the EU, because especially it was even when Brexit was happening, he was kind of at the forefront of those things happening, and he's the spirit he's putting out there, it's likely that they can head in that direction. And we know from prophecy where it's gonna go, where you're gonna have these nations that are currently allies. That whole spirit's gonna be put to a rest. But there's a process to it. When it comes to security and the military, we are not equipped to face the risks, he said, as he outlined his vision for a more assertive EU on the global stage. Mr. Draghi's report also called on EU governments to spend big on joint defense projects because they could no longer rely entirely on the US. And yeah, even the situation with the, what is it? Not the Start 2 is the missiles thing. What was the pipeline called, man? The one going into Germany. Fucking, I haven't forgotten the name of it. But a pipeline from Russia to Germany, the one that got bombed. And even that whole project having to, to be put to a stop. Because of like the invasion of Ukraine and the sanctions that came after. That's basically, Germany having its hands tied and various European nations having their hands tied as far as where they're going to get gas, where they're going to get energy. Like cheap gas and energy they were getting because of their relationship with the US basically being part of NATO. And that's like the vibration of what do you call it? That's the vibration of how the relationship's been going. They're based, they're beholden to the states, the US desires, and that's the what's building friction over time. Because obviously, what's going on in fucking Germany ain't and the US ain't gonna be the same interest, same shit going down. But then because of, especially when it comes to military defense, for now it's like Germany's military is not nearly as extensive as it would need to be to defend itself in certain situations, which is why it's been, maintain that relationship with the US. That's most of Europe anyway. I remember, was it 20? It was when Theresa May was in, like 2019 maybe. I think it was 2018, 2019, some shit like that. When they were talking about renewing, keeping a Trident missile system over here in the UK going, and people saying, "Oh, there's no need for nukes and blah blah blah." But then it was the reality is if you're not a nuclear power, you ain't gonna be able to say a damned thing, um, in the international space, especially for the UK. That's the thing is that pomp and pride. They think, oh, the British Empire and blah blah blah. This a lot of on the global stage, they ain't really got much to say, and that's been made reality. The EU's kind of there as well, where it's like they're heaping together, but then they got what's her face, Giorgia Meloni, but Italy's one of the weaker ones, man. It says, what does it say? Some weak, some strong. Was it iron and miry clay? When you go to the statue, the feet are iron and miry clay. You have the strong parts, then you have the weaker parts, and then like Italy's one of them weak parts. They imagine, Rome was once had the world in his fist, so they also have that pomp, that pride, and that's done. Uh, so it says some EU governments fear that a second Donald Trump presidency will pose a risk to NATO if he wins November's US election. Yeah, because he upped the contributions that were needed last time it was in. And then I think in the debate he even said that he'll do it again. But that's that bald eagle spirit, man. The Republican presidential candidate said he would allow Putin and Russia to to whatever the hell they want, to any NATO member country not hitting defense spending targets. In 2019, Mr. Macron famously referred to NATO as brain dead. He said that Europeans could no longer rely on the US to provide the continent with a security umbrella against such threats as a belligerent Russia. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm looking at the schism is with military defense, because it's going into the spending as far as with their economies, catching up, competing, blah blah blah. But really, it comes down to the military interest. That's where, and it's because France is been involved in a lot of these conflicts. I think the most involved out of anyone in like a lot of the Middle East conflicts, airstrikes and whatnot. But they're looking to separate from that NATO, and that's it's in the scriptures. So I read Revelation 17 and 12, and it says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast." So yeah, these members of the EU, they receive no kingdom as yet, but then receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. So they're receiving a portion of it from the overall system. It says, "These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast." So yeah, they're basically part of that system, part of that structure. But you skip down to verse, 16. It says, "And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire." So they're gonna hate the whore. The whore is talking about America. So there's that relationship is gonna break down. And like I said, this is something that Macron's kind of been at the forefront as far as with just talking about those sentiments, and it's something that's been seen building over time, because the relationship of America has been on a decline from really from the 70s. It's like going into it, like the Watergate scandal kind of was one of the big the Watergate scandal, the Vietnam War, those are two big things that basically took away from the prestige of America. And that was not even on like the full scale of how it would go. Because, something where now it's on an even lower level somehow. Because it's been a, continual cascade of, truths coming out on how, the US operates, how they maintain their power, and the impact and influence they've had on these other countries, how they've set up, coups and whatnot, how they utilize, setting up their own leaders and whatnot, saying like, oh, we're doing it for democracy, freedom, blah blah blah. But it's just about having a favorable relationship with themselves. It's a form of control, of extending their power, and even with the EU, that's an aspect of it, because it was like end of World War II. It was like, oh, the EU wars and whatnot started 2 world wars. These guys can't be in control of themselves. We'll set up. The US will take care of like global threats, and then these men can just focus on building their economies, etc. But then what does it say? The 10 horns, which so that for the Most High have put in their hearts to fulfill His will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. Yeah, that's they've basically agreed to give to give their power unto the beast until the words fulfilled. So that's why it's like that relationship's amicable, but only for a set period of time, and then they'll hit that point where that amicability is going to go in the bin. It's really going to be when they hate the whore, they switch, they be like fuck this, whatever the means by which that relationship breaks down. They're then going to turn and and shoot missiles, man, and end America. Habakkuk 2:5, it says, yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Yeah, and that's a big aspect of how Esau, established himself, built himself up, established his empires, and it's even going back to the ancient world, where it was, gathering all the people, heaping them together, making them as one. The same Babylonian Tower of Babel mindset, making everyone one people. That Antiochus spirit. It says, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And imagine it's not just the heathen, the nations that have been conquered, what were formerly like second and third world countries, where they were like nobodies, and then, they built up to where they have military capabilities on par, nuclear capabilities, planes, missile systems, all these things where they can, put up a fight, contend. Whereas previously it would be like, the military will come through and just sweep it. It'd be, it would be like what's going on in the Middle East now, where they don't have, a formalized military. You're dealing with like what they would call an insurgency. But a lot of these nations that were formerly weak, now they have, power on par. What does it say? Shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them? So yeah, everyone's going to be looking for a piece. They're going to be looking to take a bite out of, out of America, because that's been that key whore that's been used, pimped around, to come against the whole world. Because even further down, skip down a few verses, to 16, it says, thou art filled with shame for glory. Well, okay, start from 15. It says, verse 15, so woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink, that puttest thy bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord Jehovah's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. Yeah, shameful spewing. And that's what's done happen. It's not even a new thing, because being from the millennial generation, it was with like for this current generation, it was like the Iraq War was a big thing that was like televised, and even like early internet as well. A lot of things were coming out on that, the Twin Towers, and then and what the fuck is it called? And the Iraq War exposed a lot of what America, how America conducts itself, and that whole righteous, just narrative that they've had. It's been a lot of lies. And then even with the 2008 financial crash, that disillusioned people as well to being like, they're thinking, you work hard, you blah blah blah, whatever. But then, against their will, someone just fucked up their life savings, fucked up their, their ability to own a house and, build a certain kind of like, build that American dream, really. Because we're talking about the Americans. And then, they'll just be out there just through. Find out like, damn, this place is hell on earth. And there's people where they've been fucked over from there, they still ain't recovered. And then with that, it's revealed the truth of how BS that whole system is, and on a global stage, because it impacted globally. But and it's time and again, all these things have been exposed to when now, being and being called an American is like an insult. The intelligence of Americans is doubted. Isaiah 47:2, it says, "Take the millstones and grind meal, uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Thy nakedness shall be uncovered, yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. Yea, thy nakedness shall be uncovered, thy shame shall be seen." It says, uncover the thigh, make bare the leg. Essentially, all those secrets, all those truths being exposed. And, on a minor level is like with Diddy, what's happening now, where part of that, that whole underbelly of sexual deviancy and freakism, that's just being exposed, on like a celebrity entertainer level. But that's a mirror of things that happen on, higher levels with these elites. You have, these groups, these societies, secret societies with the elites of society. And then, judges, top police chiefs, top businessmen, top bankers, all people in these prominent positions. They'll be, part of these societies, and, they'll get together, they'll do things, they'll help each other out. And they'll have get-togethers, they'll link up at the lodges and whatnot, and then, give reverence to, ancient powers and whatnot. That's a huge aspect of how these guys get down. And that's why you have all these things mirrored down. It's an era that proceedeth from the rulers, man. As a ruler of a people, so is subjects. That's why you have it happen on a higher level, and then people below them trying to emulate. Then even on like the civilian level, people, they'll do certain things, and they'll channel power, they'll accomplish certain things through it, which is why they'll pursue it, they'll big it up and say, "No, I was doing this, so utilizing these crystals, or utilizing, praying onto X, Y, Z." But then now it's what prior, if you go to like the 50s or 60s, when you had Hollywood in its so-called golden age, that was, it was looked at like, wow, these are the most legendary, most prolific, most shining golden examples of humanity. But in reality, what what actual worth are they of? And that's the thing is now it's being exposed for hair, but then back then you just didn't have the internet. You didn't have means of all this information getting out. Now that you kind of have that, it's like you'll have people kind of just flung out there just to the public to kind of sate them for a while. So we really started with like Jimmy Savile, where it's like that wasn't even something until he was dropped dead. Because even like a follow-up example would be with was it Prince Andrew, but then he still gets to enjoy all the all the lifestyle of basically being a royal, even though it's like his nose, he was linking up with Epstein, his nose was on the island, nose doing certain things, did the interview XYZ, but then who's gonna have the power to go in there and be like, okay, no, headlock this guy and throw him in jail. But then to make people feel like, oh, they have some hold over them, there'll be a little, okay, Jimmy Savile, okay, a little P Diddy, a little Harvey Weinstein or whatever, go and get excited about that, and that's why they have the lesser luminaries. That's why them guys are still gonna get an MLTB. They're not in that ruling class. Okay, finish on this. Obadiah 1 and 6. It says, how are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee, and there is none understanding in him. And yeah, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. It's your allies, it's those that you're working with, those that eat off you. They're going to be the ones to turn on you, and that's the nature of Esau. What's Russia and the U.S., the Soviets and the U.S. contending? That's just Esau and Esau violence. You talk about black on black crime. Esau and Esau crime has got the highest, some of those legendary body counts. It was World War I and World War II, man. Esau and Esau. It wasn't because of Jacob in there or some Elam or Moab that people were doing it for. It's Esau and Esau. That's the spirit. And then with that's how it's gonna end. The other nations, they've all got vengeance in their heart. And then with the Russians, they're a tool that's been crafted for a particular purpose, which is to come against the Western world, come against the beast system, and bring it to its end. It says they've deceived thee, man. And that's really how the elites are being drawn in. They think there's something to their benefit within the system, but lo and behold, it was just a lie. But yeah, I'll leave it there. Shalom, shalom.